Chairman, or Chairperson I should say, of the South Pacific Stock Exchange, the CEO, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me much pleasure to be here tonight. I was watching these very young, energetic people dancing, and they were really fantastic, and I was also admiring their stomachs. I used to think that I used to be like that many years ago, and I remember Mervyn being like that also many years ago. Ladies and gentlemen, the CEO and of course the Chair has very aptly summarized the purpose, of course, of tonight and the whole the surroundings or the environment regarding the stock market. I do not want to elaborate further on that, but essentially to say that it is very critical for a country like Fiji. That is a small island nation state. It is not surrounded by large populated countries. So we are not, for example, like Singapore, where it's a small country but it has the benefit of a large population pocket around it, which allows for a lot more investment to flow in, which allows for a lot more capital markets to grow. Nonetheless, as a country of that size like Fiji and surrounded by the ocean, we have to become a lot more clever, a lot more innovative, and a lot more smarter in the way that we have sustained economic growth. It's very critical for us to actually grasp that concept. We cannot be like other countries. We cannot function like countries where it has large populations around it. We cannot function like countries, for example, even like Australia and New Zealand, that have what we call deep wealth that's been built into it, because they have had the experience of having sustained economic growth and indeed what I call deep wealth within the economies. If you look at a country like Australia, it gained its deep wealth, if you like, after it shifted from an agrarian-based society post-World War II, where you had 20 years of Menzies-led government that saw the implementation of the Snowy Mountain hydro schemes, etc. We had large-scale migration coming to Australia, bringing a lot of skill sets. Now, we do not actually have that, but we can actually become like that. And the only way to become like that is to be able to implement and instill and engender the idea of professionalism. And I do not mean it as a cliche term. We need to engender the culture of transparency. We need to engender the culture of professionalism, appointing people on merit, getting the right skill sets within our society. We have FNPF today. We have the South Pacific Stock Exchange today. We have a number of listed companies today. But we do not have one single Fijian actuarial. Not one single Fijian is an actuarial that's actually practicing in our country. Now we therefore have, for example, as announced in the budget this year, we are offering now scholarships to any Fijian student who's completed year 13 and gets accepted in a university outside of Fiji, will fully fund their studies. Will pay for what we call under the topper scheme. There are a number of other areas within in the economy that we do not have people, Fijians qualified in those areas. So we've allowed for 20 new positions to offer scholarships to people, Fijians, to go away, study, come back and bring their skill set to Fiji. It's critically important for us to understand that, because if we want to have sustained economic growth, we've had 9 years of growth, we want to, of course, continuously build upon that. We will lose the momentum if we are not continuing to be smarter. We will lose that momentum if we do not have the right people in the right places. And we will lose that momentum if we do not have the professionals that we require in our economy. It's very important, ladies and gentlemen, for us to understand that. It means not only that government should invest in the future of our country, but the private sector must also invest in the future of their companies and developing the personnel. And I think that's one area the private sector currently, I think, I would say with respect, is actually lacking. You need to build that cadre of people that will take our private sector forward. This brand, Fiji, is a fantastic brand. You go to any part of the world today, and if you mention the word Fiji, it conjures a very positive image. People actually smile or break out into a laughter. Of course, we've got people trademarking the word Bula now. I mean, we obviously are going to take some action, but it goes to show the capacity of Fiji. It goes to show the value that's associated with the brand Fiji. So we can take advantage. So if we have companies that are going to adhere to international standards, are going to adhere to the new laws that have been put in place, whether it's through the Companies Act, whether it's through the South Pacific Stock Exchange, whether it's internationally accepted accounting principles, if we are able to follow the trend, if we, for example, as our Honourable Prime Minister is the President of COP23, we must economically and financially take advantage of what he has propelled us. He's put a trajectory out into the global stage. We must take advantage of that. So we have again, for example, in that space, offered, postgraduate studies in renewable energy. We get a 250% tax deduction if you invest in research and development in renewable energy. So this, and the ITC sector. So there's a number of opportunities that we have, but we will forego those opportunities if we do not stick to the required level of professionalism, to the required level of transparency. And we must take advantage of this fantastic brand that we have, and that is brand Fiji. We must not undervalue it. We will actually undervalue it if we do not actually stick to acceptable standards. So ladies and gentlemen, I'd of course like to also very quickly mention, as mentioned by the CEO, as you know, the EFL, or formerly known as FEA, Energy Fiji Limited, has now given shares to all domestic account EFL holders. So they automatically, within 18 months' time, once the company is fully listed, will be able to trade on the South Pacific Stock Exchange. It opens up enormous new opportunities. We have at the same time, for example, the Unit Trust of Fiji now being invited by countries like Vanuatu to come and invest there. In fact, they have already started investing with the Unit Trust of Fiji, in Fiji. I think I understand it's a tune of about $5 million. The superannuation funds are looking at Fiji. So there's enormous potential in that respect. There's enormous potential in the South Pacific Stock Exchange. And I'd also like to echo the sentiments. There are a number of companies in Fiji at the moment, in particular family-owned companies that have been around for about 3-4 generations. They're ripe to be listed. And if any of them are here in this room, I urge you to please consider that. You know, as they say, the first generation builds it, the second generation consolidates it, the third generation loses it. You don't want to be in that position. But it also means that you bring a particular level of professionalism into your company. You do not necessarily lose control per se, but you're able to get that level of equity and the level of investment into your company to take not just your company, but also the economy further. So ladies and gentlemen, like I said, there's a lot of opportunities around. Government, of course, is working very diligently in respect of developing the capital markets, in respect of providing the enabling environment for the private sector to do what is best, and in fact best for themselves, but also best for the economy. One last point I'd like to make is that I've seen in the private sector quite commonly, a lot of people think only up to the next transaction. You must think beyond that one transaction or the second transaction. You need to be able to develop a market. I'll give you a very classic example, a very simple example. We, for example, at one point in time reduced the duty on imported second-hand vehicles if they were hybrid vehicles. We've now put up the duty. Nonetheless, we've now reduced duty if the cars are, younger than 2 years, and because we're trying to encourage new technology in motor vehicles. But most of these car companies or second-hand car dealers only look at making a huge margin on one sale. Yes, there are a lot more vehicles on the road, and that's another issue as to how we're going to deal with it. But they look at making a huge margin on one sale. If they develop the idea of saying, let's have a reasonable margin, knowing that a person who can buy a car at a reasonable price, he or she will constantly change the vehicle. At the moment in Fiji, when the vehicle, you buy a vehicle, you know, if it has an accident, you sort of take it to somebody in the workshop, you get it all hammered in and hammered out, whatever the case may be. You need to go and buy second-hand parts. But if people were to actually sell motor vehicles at a reasonable price, you would then, families, individuals would say, look, I actually want to change my vehicle now. It's been 2 years, it's been 3 years, I had a bit of a dent, maybe I can change my vehicle now, because it is affordable and because it is attractive. You therefore, by actually looking beyond the one transaction, you're building a second-hand car industry in itself. So there are numerous examples we can give you. The reason I chose that because I was somewhere today where they were dealing with second-hand vehicles. So ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to, of course, thank in particular the CEO, and she's brought about a particular nuanced approach to the capital markets, and also the kind of energy and intellect she brings to it. I think is very much appreciated. Please let's put our hands together for her again. Of course, the board, of course the shareholders who were there, they initially injected funds, but since then they have not injected any funds, and we continue to inject funds into the South Pacific Stock Exchange. So I hope that the shareholders of the South Pacific Stock Exchange actually look at what form of capital investment they can make within their own company. I think it is enormous, a fantastic opportunity for us to be able to host in 2020 this huge gathering of people. Next year, we are hosting for the first time in Fiji in the month of May, the Asian Development Bank annual meeting. It's never been held in the South Pacific. We'll have 4,500 people descend from all parts of the world into Nadi for 1 week. Imagine the exposure. Imagine the exposure to your companies, exposure to Fiji as a financial destination, as a destination for potential investment. Of course, we urge you to also contribute towards the hosting of the ADB. We give you 150% tax deduction. So you can think about that too. But again, then followed on that, in 2020, we'll be having the international the stock exchange gathering. So there's a number of things that are happening on the front. I think there's a lot of positivity around that. We need to take advantage of that. We need to develop and further instill the level of professionalism, the transparency, adherence to the laws. Please pay your taxes. You pay your taxes. We develop better infrastructure. When you develop better infrastructure, you actually attract more investment, both domestically and also internationally. Thank you once again. I wish all the participants all the best, and of course all the best to all the those who may not have necessarily won the award, but please keep on trying, and those who have won, fantastic job, well done. Thank you.